Hello, and welcome to the Posers Podcast, the place where we skip the fluff, say the quiet parts out loud, and dig into what really matters. This is where photography, psychology, and business collide. I'm Jody, your host, and I'm bringing you my raw takes, hard wins, and a whole lot of unfiltered honesty about what it takes to build a photography business that actually connects and makes money. So ladies, grab your headphones and get your tits up and your ears open because we are going to build something really incredible together. Welcome back to the Posers Podcast and part 2 of my conversation with the one and only Darcy Benincosa. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, go hit play on that first because we covered everything from editing secrets to the trends that we really hope would die a slow and painful death. And today we are taking it even deeper and talking about the artistry of finding your voice, what it really takes to shift your identity as a creative entrepreneur, and how inspiration outside of photography can really fuel your best work. Let's dive in.
Well, and here's the thing is it's fun to develop that. Like, I think the good and bad of an artist is we're always looking to be better and we're always looking to like push the envelope. Like, what could I do differently? How could I bring more life? How could I bring more editorial? I really love editorial images and ones that just tell a really big story just, with one click. And it's the journey, right? Nobody should be a luxury editor 2 years into their business. I mean, you could be, but it does take time to get to know yourself. And I think so many people want to rush the process and you can rush it. My business actually grew really, really, really quickly, but
So did mine.
I think it's because at the beginning I was older when I started, so I feel like I knew exactly what I wanted to go through and who I wanted to be. So, yeah, but the process is really fun too. So, we're not saying any of these things to make you go back to your page and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never going to book luxury clients." It's like look at it with this beautiful eye of what do I really love and what do I have to say as a photographer, because if you don't know that, you will blend in to look like everybody else for sure.
Yeah, for sure. You said a little bit ago that you could look back on, what did you say, 2012 and like
Mhm.
still love the edit that you had. I'm not sure I could go all the way back that far, but I do think that my brand has been very cohesive since probably about 2016, 2017. So like, what's that math? I can't do that math. That's
9 years?
7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
9 years, something like
8
that,
years?
which I think is good. Like if you can go back almost a decade and think like I am still so proud of these images and I wouldn't, if I had to like share this gallery now, would I be embarrassed of it? But if you scroll back really, really far into JN photography and you get back into 2013, 2014, all of that, I was making every single one of the mistakes that we're talking about
Me too.
now, but I also do think that that was a little bit more in style back then. And so like then the question comes up of like how much do you follow trends and how much do you stay true to yourself and how much do you stay like timeless and classic? Because I'm not a wedding photographer anymore, but if I was, I would be so irrelevant because I do not follow like the trends in regards to like the tilt shift that's happening right now.
Mm,
I don't
mhm.
follow trends in regards to like making the background the thing that's in focus and having the people like all blurry. Like I don't follow, I'm not in love with that trend. I don't, the whole flash photography look that's very prevalent right now in wedding photography. Like if I was still there, I'm not sure that I would like jump on that bandwagon and do it. And so then it really, I don't know, it begs the question of like, if you don't keep up with these trends, will your business dry up because you're not staying relevant?
No.
She said no, everybody. Just
No. Everybody who was in it when I started, they don't do a lot of those things. But I think you could also play with them and see, is there a way I could do it like I don't like a crooked horizon. I just don't think I ever will. It just doesn't sit right with me. It looks amateur to me, even though I get the trend. I get that it's meant to be fun and young and whatever. But I don't photograph a lot of people in their 20s. My clients are usually 30s, maybe late 20s. But yeah, I no, I don't think I think when you're a beautiful artist and you're able to capture the essence of someone and you're able to like really understand, it's like saying to Annie Leibovitz, like, you need to do the tilt trend.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't. She is such an artist and she knows how to set a setting. To me, I studied directing in film at NYU. So I interned on Broadway, I was directing musicals. And so that's what I was doing before I shifted into wedding photography. And I just started approaching wedding photography like a play, like a Broadway musical. I'm like, okay, this is our setting. How do I want the setting to be? I think your setting, like how you create a space is really, really important. And you can move things around and have the eye. I like watching a lot of movies. Like if you guys haven't watched Belfast by Kenneth Branagh, it's all in black and white. And the way he sets each scene is set in the most beautiful artistic way that to me speaks volumes above the backgrounds now in focus and the people are not. Like it just speaks volume. Like your composition, the way you understand light. To me, if you're a master at those things, you will always be an in-demand photographer, and you can choose to try out a trend or not. My second shooter, I don't do the heavy flash at receptions. I still shoot a lot of black and white film at my receptions because I like the old Hollywood kind of vibe. But
Mhm.
she does it for fun. She's good at it and will add a few. I don't ever really love them, but I add a few because if that's what's going on in trend, I don't see a problem with my second shooter doing some of it and putting it in the gallery if that's what's on trend. It's not what I'll probably showcase when I'm publishing it and things like that. Though I mean, I like my clients to have some options, and I'm not against I am against the tilt shift unless they're running and it's just a blur of the shoe, but I don't like a tilted horizon. So to me, it's more about like composition, lighting, telling a story, improving that instead of just, if it's a trend on TikTok, I'm like, okay, well, everybody's doing it. How can I be more of an artist? Because I do think the only way you get paid really big budget is when people are in awe of you and see you as an artist, not a photographer. That's when they're paying you
Yeah.
30, 40, $50,000, 60, 100 to come and photograph their day because it's you, your reputation, and your artistry, not so much like the trends.
Yeah. And I think that speaks directly into like you're more in the wedding world, I'm more in the portrait world, but it speaks directly to that in the portrait world too, that when you are sought after, when you are coveted as a photographer in your town who is going to create gorgeous imagery for your clients, then it's the same idea that they feel as though they're creating art with you. They
Mhm.
want that artwork to be on their walls. And for us portrait photographers, that's whenever we get into like 20,000, 30,000, $40,000 sales, is because you are looked at with that sort of authority and that sort of demand and that sort of like, I know I can't, other than the word covet, like that's what I feel like still working on creating and making sure that that's my focus in my business, is that I remain at a place where people are clamoring to
Mhm.
get into my studio and to work with
Mhm.
me. So I think even though your wedding world and I'm portrait world, the same exact like understanding of the artistry of how you're editing, what you're creating, what you're putting together, that is going to determine how much people are going to pay in order to have you. But I think you hit on something that leads me straight into my next point. And whenever you're talking about like, watching movies and studying art and really like looking to see what you love about art in that kind of way, and it begs the question, like, do you think that photographers could be taught that kind of style or taught that kind of artistry, or do you feel like it's something that's just kind of like innately like born into you and you either have it or you don't have it?
No, oh my gosh, I would never say you have it or you don't have it. I think we have natural inclination. So I think everybody's doing healing and inner child work right now. So if you go back to when you were a kid, what did you love? And like if you loved storytelling and you loved putting, playing, and for me, if you have a draw to storytelling, which I think is what photography is about, it's what writing poetry is about, words. Like, I think if you have that draw or you just really look at your world, I do think photographers look at the world in a different way. My oldest sister is an accountant. She does not see the world like I do. Like when they come to lunch at my house, I've got these big ceramic bowls and I plate everything, and the presentation is really important to me because beauty is really really important to me. All you have to do is walk through my house to see like the art I've curated over the years from different countries. And so, but I grew up very heathen. Like I grew up in this, my parents had no sense of style or taste. Like our house never had matching furniture. Nobody
Mm.
ever, like looking at my upbringing, you wouldn't think. And I did like, I always feel bad that my sister got married before I really understood this world, because her bouquet was just like a ball of roses. It was just like a round ball of roses. And now that I know what I know about florals, and I didn't know at the time, I didn't know what a wedding, I mean, she was classic. She had a classic style, but I look back at it and I'm like, "Oh, I could have done so much better now," but that was back when I was just first getting started. I do think it can be taught to most. I think there are a few like people who just need to cut loose and run, or just, do do some photo shoots that, if they still want to do suitcases in a field on a couch, there's a market for that. But I do think taste on some level can be taught, but you have to want it. It can't be a force. Like if you're
Mhm.
naturally drawn towards making things beautiful, making a person look their most beautiful, making somebody feel, if you're drawn to interacting with humans that way, then yes, I do think you can, but it does take study like anything. I mean, I love study. I study great photographers. I think we all do. If you don't have like a book by Richard Avedon in your house, what are you doing? Like looking at his old work and things like that. It's important to look at the masters, because not to, and then do copy them for a while. I think at the very beginning you are kind of trying to copy others. I know that might sound bad, but I would look at it. He's long dead. Avedon doesn't care. Like I would look at some of his work and try and recreate what he was doing, because the way he has the lines of a woman's body were very very powerful and very distinct, and they're very different than just like having a lady pose with her hand on her cheek on a desk, like, right, like it's art. And so I do think it's good to mimic the masters a bit and play with it and see what you can create with a human. I'm kind of going off, but yes, of course it can be taught if you have a natural inclination to it.
Yeah, I think that that's the key point, is that yes, it can be taught, but the person has to be willing to learn it too. Like I think that there's a lot to be said. Me and you seem as though we grew up exactly the same. I grew up very poor. I grew up on a farm, like literally building tree houses. I've talked about it on the podcast before. I was feral as a child. There was nothing about me that is like who I am now. And my parents didn't care about design. Nobody in my family cared about it in that regard. In like the house that I was in, until we until I think that my parents maybe lost their jobs. I was really young and we had to move in with my grandmother. And
Mm,
my grandmother loved interior design.
mm.
Absolutely loved it. And she was never like a professional at either one of them, but she also loved photography. And she would take her little 35 millimeter, like point and shoot film camera, and she would photograph all of the flowers in her garden.
Oh,
And she would photograph while she's driving down the highway. She drove buses to New York to New Mexico, like back and forth. And she would take photos of the sunset out of her
oh
windshield, like
my
while she was
gosh.
driving these big buses. And then she would come back from these big long road trips and she would sit us all down. And we all had to sit down and look at every single like Polaroid, not Polaroid, but every single like film photo that she took of these sunsets. And we called her Grunner, and we were like, Grunner, stop it. Right. But at some point, like that just started to sort of like ooze into me, and I started to really pay attention to like how she was designing her houses and what she was doing with her rooms. And she would take these furniture items and get them reupholstered into like the most immaculate grandmother couch you've ever seen, with like the floral tapestries and like all of that sort of stuff. But that's where I started to learn about like art and design and things like that. And it stuck with me in that kind of way that I still want to be learning. I still want to be looking at art. I still want to be studying art. I still want to be moving my business forward in regards to the artistry that I'm creating. And I don't know that every photographer is out there wants to put in that kind of time in order to move the actual artistry of their business versus moving the needle of the financial side of their business. It's like everybody, here's my point wrapped
Mm.
up into one sentence. Everybody wants to say, I want to be a luxury photographer, or I want to make 10 or 20 or $30,000 in order to do it, but not necessarily want to study the art that would get them there.
And the people skills and the communication. It's so much more than just about the photos at that stage of the game. It's so much more about
Yeah.
client experience too. But I love what you said. You know, my grandmother was a painter. Each of us kids have one of her paintings in our house. But the way I learned that I didn't like just the round rose bouquet is I started hanging out with my friend who was becoming a florist, and I watched her create these very wild, organic centerpieces that really spoke to me. And I remember leading a workshop to Japan, and I got in touch with like a very famous Ikebana florist man. I don't know what his real title was, but we went and had an I think I'm saying it right, the Ikebana. You know, do you know what that is? That very Japanese floral. Okay, it's a very specific Japanese floral arrangement that are very about the shape, and it's not about a lot of flowers. And we took that class. I just love learning from other artists, the way he talked about flowers and the way he had a structure, and the prompts he gave us to create something that wasn't just a typical bouquet or a typical centerpiece, and that we were really telling a different story, and that there should be space between the flowers and all of these things. I think each of us going, like I've gone and taken myself to a floral workshop just for fun. Or at the very beginning of my career, I flew out to LA and learned from this very famous fashion photographer. I didn't really want to be a fashion photographer, but I wasn't sure. And he was about to retire. I mean, he was using a camera from Dorothea Lange. Like it was just, all of this history, and his wealth of knowledge astounded me, inspired me. It helped me form how to use light in a different way. So I do think one of the ways, we don't have to just be in a room alone trying to pore over a book and see if we can teach ourselves. It's also about getting out among other artists that and maybe not always in the wedding workshop space. I mean, I shouldn't say this because I'm hosting two to Italy next year, and they're going to be amazing. So come to those. That
You're like,
we'll
come,
have so much
come to my
art.
workshop.
We're gonna bring in old nonas and have them make us pasta, but I do think sometimes going outside of where you would normally go to learn about art or
Mhm.
storytelling, like go take I went to a storytelling conference in Florence in 2019. I ended up meeting, I actually got hired to do the photography, but she let me sit in on all the classes. And well, actually, I was going to book it. And then I emailed her and said, do you need a photographer? And can I do that for some ticket and some other stuff? But we have the most marketable skill. You guys can get in anywhere if you just offer to take photos for people. But just learning how
Yep.
to use words and things like that too. I think it's really important for us well, if it is important to you, it's important for me to learn and grow and bring more beauty into my life. And I really do love excellence, and I love becoming really good at something. I think I did learn that a lot when I was in Japan. I've spent a lot of time in Japan, and they're just not, it's good to also get out of America, because in America we do have that make money, produce, hustle, hustle, hustle. And listen, I've made a lot of money. I do produce, I do hustle, but it's really good to get out of that and just go create too.
Yeah, and I think that even if finances are limited, even if you can't get yourselves into these rooms, even if you can't, fly across to Japan and take a floral class in that kind of way, like I know still like the inspiration that you're putting in front of you every single day. Like if you looked at my Instagram feed, and who I follow, like I don't follow a ton of photographers. I follow a ton of interior designers. I follow a ton of sculptors because I just watching those videos fascinates me.
Mhm.
And then I follow a ton of like business oriented people, right? So like
Mm.
just being mindful of like what you're consuming and how you're growing and how that impacts the art that you're creating is really important too, just even on that like micro scale.
Yeah, mine is celebrity gossip because that is my guilty pleasure, but I agree with you.
Okay, I
I
have a
think
lot of Bravo. I have a lot of Bravo
I
too, but
don't I
everybody
don't
already knows that.
and people decorating cupcakes really helps me alleviate stress. I don't know why. I just love watching them decorate a cupcake over and over and over
I
again. The swirl,
I
the
think
swirl, the
I
swirl.
I go a little bit more towards decorating cookies. Those like
Mm.
the ones that they can do without like it's
Yes.
just
People are but I
mesmerizing.
love it is mesmerizing, but I agree. I do think not consuming your competitor's work is really helpful, and then giving yourself some personal projects that have nothing to do with what you do for money, I think is just so good.
Ooh, this brings up, this wasn't even like on my ticket. This wasn't on the roster for today, but like if somebody was just like, say they're in their third year of business or so, and they're really struggling with like finding their style, finding their editing style, which is what we were talking about mostly today. Like, what's the top three things that you would say? Like, make sure you're honing into this. Like,
Mm.
I'm putting you on the spot. So if you can't come up with three, that's okay. But like, what are some of those important things? Like you just said, make sure you're not following your competitors. Like, make sure that you're keeping like fresh in regards to just other types of art or whatever. Like, what would you say is like most important thing for people to be doing?
Yeah, actually, this brings up a really good thing I could give your audience that I put together. So, I have a brand word bank for photographers. It's like 5 pages long of all of these words. And I challenge everybody who works with me to narrow it down to three. Most people can narrow it down to seven, and then I help them narrow it down to three. So, like if we would look at somebody like India Earle, we would say her work is very organic and wild and
Mhm.
feminine. Those are three words. And you take your three words, or we look at Elizabeth Messina, ethereal,
Yes.
luminous, right? So it would
Mhm.
be three different words, and we can almost look at every big photographer and sort of narrow their work down to three words. And when you have all these words in front of you, I spent hours gathering all these words and putting them in one place because if you can put them into those three words, one of my words is intimate. And I noticed that a lot of photographers, so I guess this will move on to point number two, they photograph the same distance away from their subject. It's usually 6 feet, ironically. This was even long before COVID, but they usually stay about 6 feet away and photograph from there. Some of my signature photos are just a very close up because my word is intimate. One of my favorite photos I ever took is just the woman's lips and the man's lips, like almost touching, and the background, we were in a dark room. It's dark, but their lips, like the light is on them, and I wanted them to be coming towards each other in this intimacy. There's no eyes in the photo. There's nothing else. And to me, one that makes it more artistic because it's a different viewpoint instead of just photographing at 6 feet back, them going in for the kiss, maybe waist up. But I think like really getting in close or really getting far away and playing around with where you're standing and how close you're getting. So, first of all, get your three brand words, narrow them down, play with that, and make sure every image you post hits those three words because that will
Run it
help
through that
you.
filter.
That will help you
Yeah.
start to develop a signature style. The other one is very where you're standing and how close or far away you're getting from your clients. I get really close to mine. I let them know I'm going to be getting really close because to me that creates intimacy, which is what one of my words is. And then I also recommend taking the same 5 shots at each shoot for at least a year and make them a little different because what that will do is you will again develop your signature style. So one of the shots I always do, everybody does it now because it's in my profitable portfolio. Of course, it's fine.
I know exactly. Wait. Let me say
Go
it before
way
you
over
say
the
it.
shoulder?
Oh, dang it.
No,
No,
which
I was
one?
gonna say the one where the hands are like
Oh, the
barely
hands,
separated
yes.
from
I
themselves.
call
Yeah.
that the Michelangelo shot because it's from the Sistine Chapel. God touching Adam's finger. I got that shot from a painting from the Sistine Chapel. And then I
From
bring
studying art.
from studying art. And yes, everybody does that one now too. But at the very beginning, I did that one. I did one where I show a lot of leg, because legs, I always say choose a body part you really love and kind of accentuate it more in your photos. It will start to pull. So one of mine is legs. So I'll have the woman like really hold her dress up high and get like that really big leg
Mhm.
shot, the bouquet shot. So do the same. I call it your top five. I think I have a better name for it in my course, but those 5 things, do 5 shots the same in every single situation. It will start to develop a brand look, and make sure they're kind of signature, not just the same shots that everybody are getting. Like make them different, but do it at every shoot for at least a year. Get your 3 brand words. Make sure every photo you post can be said that those 3 brand words are what people would say about it, and make sure you're varying how far away you're standing when you're shooting, because most people get really comfortable at 6 feet and just shoot the whole shoot there, and it's super boring if you do that.
See, the thing is I've been a photographer for like 17 years, and even hearing you say these things, it reminds me in my head. I'm like, yeah, even here in the studio, whenever I'm shooting, like I forget, like stop being lazy, walk in close, like get those photos too, stand back further, get the whole big shot. Like instead of staying at my standard 6 feet, making sure that I have like the portrait that everybody would expect me to get. And I think, okay, I have two thoughts here on what you just said. For one, it's funny that you said legs because somebody told me the other day they were like studying my posing, which honestly I feel like is very humbling.
Mhm.
But she was studying my posing and she finally like sent me a DM. She's like, I think I've nailed it. I think I now understand like what it is about your posing that is so much different than other people's. And it's about the legs. And
Ah.
like, I know everybody always talks about the hands, is like the hands are so important, the hands being relaxed, the hands being in a place that sort of land as if they have this kind of like purpose, but you can't sleep on the legs, you guys.
Mhm, mhm,
Legs have to have angles, legs have to have a purpose, legs have to, and I always talk about too, like I always drape humans on top of humans. I always
mhm.
love for them to almost look like they're in this like dog pile inside the studio, because I want it to replicate how they would sort of like dogpile each other in their living room in that intimate space. I want that same feeling here. And when I'm doing that, legs have to cross over each other. Like mom's legs
Mhm.
have to get like be the base, and baby's legs go over the top of those legs, and they go in separate directions and they create angles in and of themselves. So that was my point number one. Don't sleep on legs. This just went into a posing podcast, but I guess it is called Posers. But the other thought that popped into my head, and I know we're going to wrap up really soon because you got to get going, but as portrait photographers, I think there's this school of thought that everybody talks about. Make sure you get the frameable photo. Make sure you stay 6 feet back. You get everybody looking, you get everybody smiling. And I say bullshit, because that's the photo I don't want on my walls. Whenever I take photos with me and my family or of my boys, I don't want even one of those photos on my wall where everybody's standing, everybody's looking at the camera, the photographer's 6 feet back, and there's perfect amount of space around the whole entire, everybody talks, shoot for the frame, shoot for the frame. I don't shoot anything in my studio where I'm saying shoot for the frame. I shoot for the emotion. I shoot for the connection. I shoot for the intimacy of what I want that family to feel. So
All right,
those are just my 2 points to say Darcy knows what she's talking about.
I will play devil's advocate on the last one, only because you're not shooting for those families, you're shooting for their grandparents who will also buy prints from you. And they always want the prom pose. But I agree
Okay.
with you. I
I
agree
will
with you.
I will give you that.
I
And
just get
there
like
is
3 safe shots at the beginning, and then I know I've got
agreed.
grandparents covered.
Agreed. I also tell them I will make sure that I have one photo for you in case if you want that as a safety net for
Mhm.
your holiday card. I will work on it. I will make sure we get it. But everybody who comes into the studio knows that
And
that's not
just
the focus
well,
of the shoot.
totally, because you and personally, I think it's really powerful that you don't do that, because then you're not ever putting out those safe shots, right? And people will start to come to, they already come to you so much because of those artistic pilings and I mean, I know your work and I see it, and it really works. And yeah, anybody can kind of get the safe shots. That doesn't take a lot of artistry, which I think it's powerful when you can move away from that and not rely on it.
Yeah. It takes like a little bit of a leap of faith, feeling like, no, I'm going to trust myself as an artist, while you can still also show up and make sure you're getting what the client wants to. But Darcy, thank you so much.
Oh my
This has
gosh.
been I mean, not only just fun to always talk to you, but the way that your brain works is just literally every single time that I talk to you, I come away with something new and something different. And what I was going to say at the very beginning of this podcast is the one thing that you taught me so well. And I don't know if you even know this or you remember this, but it was more so about like stepping into my power and like being like independent as a woman. I was just out of the divorce. It was on that very first, not whenever I flew to Salt Lake. It was actually before that because I was saying to you, the reason why the mastermind stuff was so hard for me was like, I'm a new single mom. I've got these 3 kids. Like, I never have time off. I'm never able to like focus on this stuff. I can never do these things on my own. And you were the one who said to me, well, why don't you just fly up here? And or maybe I said I would have to come to you if I like was going to have like a 3 hour like length of time that I could just like sit down and have this conversation with you. And I was like, but I don't know whether or not my ex-husband would like ever allow it. And you said to me, you were like, why does he have to know? And I was like, what do you mean? Why does he have to know? Like, I have to ask permission to leave. He has to like watch the children that we co-created together. And you were like, yeah, but just tell him you have a wedding. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm not saying that you taught me to lie to my
I'm
ex-husband,
okay with
but
lying to ex-husbands. I'm very okay with that.
but
They
it was
don't need to know.
it's just coming outside of all the business talk and all the editing talk and whatever. I think one of the most important things that you taught me was like, get creative whenever you need to make something happen in your business. Get creative with how you're going to commit to making that happen. And you said to me too after that, you were like, look, it sounds as though once or twice a year you're just going to have a wedding that pops up on your calendar so that you can go take a break at a resort in California, or so that you can come up here to Salt Lake and do a one-on-one with me, or so that you can like have the, because that was the only thing that my ex-husband was okay with me like taking time away from, was that if I said I had a wedding out of town somewhere. And you were like, well, sounds like you have a wedding. I was like, oh my God, you're a genius.
I am glad I had that idea. That makes me happy for myself that I did that. Well, I know we need to end, but I just want to say what's so powerful to watch you go through that. You were really shifting your identity. You know, you were leaving this marriage, you were now stepping into this single mom role identity, and I'll tell you, every one of us has an identity that we are operating from. And if we always have the identity of I can never put myself first, or I don't know when I'll have time, or all of those things. It really is those subtle little shifts, and you really made it work in such a beautiful way. And look, I just love looking at where you are now. Like, we can look back at that past Jody who wasn't sure what she was going to do or what she needed to tell her husband. And you just kept taking act after act. You kept taking step after step. You kept trusting after trusting. And it's never going to be really easy for people. It's easy to look at people who've done it and think, oh, it must have just been a straight line, or this is what it should be easy for people. And it's really not. That is life. Life is not like super easy all the time when you're working towards something great, but it doesn't mean it has to be hard or awful. But I have to say, you come on my podcast and you are the person I've invited back the most. You are my highest listened to guest. Like, people love you. They love your energy. You are just a natural born teacher, leader, artist. And it's so amazing to look at the Jody who, took the risk, flew up here, made the time, even when it felt impossible. And now how you've created this new identity for yourself of this very successful photographer. I remember when you were starting your studio and you were like, I just want to be home with my kids on the weekend. I don't want to miss their time home on the weekends. I'm not
Yeah.
going to do weddings anymore. And that was, again, another moment where you're like, I'm not sure how I'm going to make this work, but I trust myself because I've made hard things work in the past and here. And now look at where you are. I love seeing you in your studio. I love looking at your logo behind you and all this beautiful things. I love that you're knocking down a wall and going to create a new closet and you're expanding. And you are just an incredible human being. So I just adore you.
I love it. Thank you so much. Honestly, like it was just because I followed the path you had already like blazed before me. Okay, the one thing that I want from you going forward is I want workshops from you that aren't like, I don't want to go do styled shoots anywhere.
Mhm.
It's not what I want to do anymore. I want workshops where like a really cool, like badass little cult of women goes to a really cool place somewhere in the world, and we do all the floral classes and we eat all the food and we study all the art, and we just like go for inspiration and community and all of that. And I want it led by you.
Well, why don't we just go? Let's just get I don't wanna lead that, I wanna participate. I You don't need me. Why don't we all just look at our calendar and you come join me in Italy and you and I eat pasta and we'll, a few other bad
We hold
you
on,
have to
we
be
talked.
badass and we're not gonna teach you the whole time. We're all just gonna enjoy and live la dolce vita, but yeah.
Okay, wait. We talked about this because you reached out a few weeks ago and you asked me about my wedding venue and what it was called because you remember it from the wedding and all of that. And because you're teaching a workshop in Italy.
I'm doing 2, and one's with a real wedding, so I'm only letting a few people shadow that, but she's a photographer and she knows the drill, but it's gonna be epic.
Okay, what's the other one that's not based on the real wedding?
Well, we're still solidifying the venue, but it is going to have a styled shoot. Sorry, we're gonna 'cause that location needs a big old Grace Kelly veil, but I am gonna teach so what I really wanna do is recreate the class that I learned from the man who I think has since passed away way back in LA, which it was only $600, and I was a poor student, school teacher at the time and drove my little car out to LA, paid $600, which felt like the worst, like the most money I'd ever spent. And he just was so generous and taught us all day and all these different lighting and how to shoot. Anyway, it was just so beautiful. And I was like, what if we do more? I want to do something more like that, where it's not just like, here's how to pose a bride in a bouquet, but here's how to really capture something different. And so, and I don't want to charge that much for it. Maybe that's bad, but I'm like, I just want to do it for $600 and we all just really play around. He just let us all play and create, and he was so intentional and he would ask our thoughts. Like, he was such a famous man, but he just had no ego, and I've never learned better from a teacher since him. And yeah, but I know we were talking about Italy, and I think you're going to come and I don't know, come lead a class or
Well,
something at one of the
wait, is that
workshops
one?
maybe.
Okay, not that we need to talk about my Google Calendar here on the Posers podcast, but is that the one that is right whenever I have to be in Punta Cana?
Yes, it's
Damn
the one
it.
in Sicily. No, I think it's right after, like the 18th of April. But we're a little flexible on the date. We're waiting to hear back on the venue now. So, but the other wedding one it's May 5th or something, and that one cannot be changed.
Okay, because then I start to think like maybe there's a little Jayanne meets Darcy Benincosa world where we both go over there together and we both bring like a group of women
Let's do
who want
that.
to come over, learn wedding side from you, learn portrait side from me, and maybe there's a styled shoot, even though I don't want to do a styled shoot, but like maybe there's all of that world, but then also we're taking like Italian cooking classes
Mhm.
and we're like taking the train, going over to Rome is close by there, right? Rome is closest to Sicily.
No, Rome is not, but we could still do it up in Tuscany area because I think we should actually go to Verona and go to Venice at sunrise and
I would
not do a styled
love.
shoot, but we should all go. Like, just walk. I love walking the cities at sunrise. I One of my favorite walks in my life was London at 5 a.m. In the summer, it's really bright. So, yeah,
Oh,
we should do
love
we
that.
but Verona is really understated and nobody does that. But
I've never been to
we should talk.
Verona. I've I've never been to Venice. I've only done like Lake Como, Cinque Terre, Amalfi, obviously getting married there, Positano, like that whole thing, and then Rome. So
Mhm,
my entire life's purpose is to see every single part of Italy. So I'm
mhm.
there. Like we'll do a little mashup. I will bring portrait people, you will bring wedding people, and we'll just have like a little cult of women who want to do like really incredible things.
Let's do it. I'm gonna be there all month. I might stay 2. I don't know. That's the joy of being a photographer. You can just go and live
I
wherever you
hate
want.
you.
I have to have some benefit of not having children, okay? There has to be perks.
Yeah, exactly. Because those children that I have, I said something to somebody the other day, and it's a little bit like, I don't know, out there. But I was like, I'm not nursing my children anymore, like physically like nursing them as newborn children. But for some reason, I still feel as though they are leached onto me for food. Like they are leached onto me for the Costco delivery. And I'm like, how do I cut these ties? How do I get away from you? And I think not away from you. I love my children, but I think the answer to this is to go to Italy with
I think
you.
it's to go to Italy. Yeah, because my sister I remember when her two boys became teenagers and we went to Costco and what she was putting in her cart and she was spending $400 a week just to feed these two boys. I just thought, what is happening? She's like, this is how much they eat. I thought, oh
It
my gosh,
literally is.
it's mind blowing.
I think that I think that I spend about $600 per week
Yeah.
at Costco
Yeah.
because I have 3 teenage boys, and
Yeah.
it is nuts. And
200 per
I
kid.
make full like I actually joke around about not being a very good cook, but I do make very like good dinners every single night. And they will eat through piles and piles and piles of food to where I think that I made enough for 12 people. And they're like, Mom, is there any more? Mom, is
Oh
there any more? And I'm like,
gosh.
oh my God, like, where is it going?
I don't know.
But
The gift of the youth. I don't know.
there it is. But they're also all very into working out. They all like pump
Yeah.
iron and eat protein and do all,
Yep.
they're men. They're
Yeah. You're
stinky,
raising
gross
men.
men. It's so off brand for me to like 3 of them, honestly.
Oh, you're so
Okay, we're gonna hop off of this. We're gonna plan Italy. We're gonna see whether or not we can make that happen. Tell me before we jump off, what can I put in the show notes for you? I'm obviously putting your editing course, a link to that in the show notes. I'm gonna put a link to your portfolio course also because that I think is almost like the core of who you are. And what else does everybody need to know and where can they find you?
Well, I'll give you guys the brand words because I think that will be really, really helpful. So maybe we can put a link to the brand words in the show notes so everybody can do that and do their little brand exercise. And then, yeah, the nice thing is there's only one Darcy Benincosa. Like the URL, the website, all of it is just me. If you can spell it, it's very Italian, means a good thing. It's very Italian. So if you can spell that, you'll find me.
Darcy, that is all honestly so smart. Honestly, whenever I was driving here today, I thought in my head, I was like, you know what? Darcy freaking did it right because her entire name is just your business name, your website, your brand, everything. Because I'm in this struggle right now where like my business is JN Photography, but then the podcast is Posers, and the posing method should technically be under it's a mess. Do you hear the mess that I've created? That like, I'm like, okay, do I need to change my Instagram to Posers or do I start a new Posers
No,
Instagram or like it's
just
so if you're
everything
just
under
starting
JN.
out, do everything under your name.
It helps.
Okay, I love you
Love
infinitely
you.
and to
Thank
all of the
you.
pieces. And I'm just so excited to see where you're going with all of this because not only have you watched me grow, but watching you freaking like take on the world, I continue to be in awe. So thank you for taking some time to like talk with us today.
Thank you.
I love it. Okay, and there it is. I could talk to Darcy for hours, honestly. I have, actually. And I hope you have loved every single second of the time that we got to spend with her here on the podcast. But here's the kicker. This conversation isn't just staying on the podcast. We dropped a little surprise in here. Darcy and I are planning to teach together in Italy. Pasta, art, portraiture, wedding genius on her side, portrait genius on my side, a cult of badass women coming together, and obviously a lot of Prosecco. So keep your eyes open for that because my fingers are crossed that it is happening. We are trying to work out some dates. Even after we got off that podcast, we both went straight to our Google calendars. So we don't have any of that infrastructure built yet, but obviously keep an eye out because that will be happening in the near future, to say the least. So in the meantime, go check out the links in the show notes for her editing course, her portfolio course, and of course, she is gifting to you the brand word bank. And you need all of those things, you guys. And then obviously come back here next week with your tits up and your ears open because we're going to keep on building together.
Okay, so that is a wrap on this episode of the Posers Podcast. If you loved it, please subscribe, rate, and review because honestly, algorithms are needier than all of our ex-boyfriends combined. And ladies, I need all the help I can get. If you've got thoughts, questions, love letters, even hate mail, please send them my way. I actually read every single one of them. So until next time, stay bold, stay messy, and don't let the bullshit win. Tits up, ears open, and go build something incredible. Bye for now, friends.